Oh. Hear your voice.
Ay, ay, ay.
Hello, Shell.
Hi.
Oh, it's a little loud. We have to make it lower.
There we go.
There we go.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah. Hi, Mel. Hi, Maria. Hi, Ann. Hi.
Great movie, Shelley. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Great choice.
Lots to say.
We're seeing a very interesting television show on Netflix
Which one?
called Chloe. Very interesting. It's a German series
Uh-huh.
about a young lady. I don't want to say too much, but it's done very well.
Oh, okay. I'll look for it.
What did you say the name of it was?
Chloe. It's called Chloe, Chloe,
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
it.
Thank you.
on Netflix.
It's very exciting and humorous. It's a black humor. Really, really very well done.
She's having trouble.
Hello, can you hear me?
There
Yes, we
you
can.
go.
Can you hear
Hey,
me?
finally, yes.
Hello, Shelley, can you hear
Yes.
me?
Yes.
Thank
There
Oh,
you are.
I'm yelling at the screen.
Don't yell at the screen. It'll get mad at you. Don't do that.
Thank you all for being patient.
Okay.
Pressure must be up through the roof. Well, I'm glad we can finally connect.
Good, good.
I have a lot of people in the waiting room. I'm admitting them all.
Sure.
Shelley, this was a great movie. It was really wonderful.
I'm glad you liked it. Thank you.
Loved it.
Hey, Stan. Hi, Linda.
Right back. Shelly, I believe this is the last of our series for this session. Am I correct?
No, 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 no. We're going, no, we go through to, yeah, April, through April to April 26th. And then we start again.
I know. Yay. Wonderful. Wonderful. We'll give them another minute or so. What do you think?
Okay, sure.
We have 26 already in the room.
Good.
Yes.
Hi, Jackie and Larry.
Hello, Susan. Hello, Maurice.
Hello. Good to be
Hello.
here.
Glad to have you here. Good to be here too. Anytime with Shelly is a good time. Looking at all the names. We have some more people waiting.
Good.
Here we go.
Huh.
They said there's still people waiting.
Still people waiting.
Okay.
Yes,
So
Yep.
people waiting, they're piling in.
yes, yes. I'm charging them all $5.
It's still a bargain.
It's a bargain at any price. Thank you, Dory. You're so right. At any price. Being involved with the Stirling, the Friends of the Library, and what the library does is a bargain at any price. And
Mhm.
Shelly is the icing on the cake.
I agree completely.
Yes. Hello, Jackie. Okay, we're letting Alice in now.
Okay,
All right. You want to
Let's
get
get
started?
yes.
All right, let me do this wonderfully brief and wonderfully wonderful biography of you, a brief introduction to our own Shelly Isaacs. When we talk about the Friends of the Stirling Road Library, he's right at the top of the list. Shelly is founder and programmer and host of Cafe Cinematheque International, representing many theatrical and academic venues throughout South Florida. He teaches foreign language film appreciation at the Lifelong Learning Society at FAU. And at FIU, he has done his exclusive cruises. He serves as a film expert for Celebrity Cruise Lines during their annual voyage to the Cannes International Film Festival. But Shelly, no one could be bigger fans than the group that are here with you tonight. We are so honored to have you here, and it's with a real pleasure for not just your wisdom, but your selection of videos. So with my pleasure to introduce Shelly Isaacs to everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. Good evening. It's nice to see you. familiar names and faces. Okay, so tonight we have, this month was Germany, but we go from Germany, we go to Japan in this film, as you've seen. The film is Cherry Blossoms. It's from 2008. The director's name is Doris Dory. Doris Dory. She was born in Hanover, Germany, and after completing her secondary education in 1973, she studied film at the University of the Pacific in Stockton, California, followed by studies at the New School in New York, and then continued her studies at the University of Film and Television in Munich. Since 1983, she has written and directed a number of award-winning features, as well as having written a few best-selling novels and directing opera. She is a member of the Penn Center in Germany, as well as a member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences here in the United States. Before I get into the film itself, I just want to talk a little bit about the genesis of it, because this film has a very interesting genesis. I know many of you are probably familiar, I may have mentioned it before, the film Tokyo Story. Tokyo Story. Well, this has the essence of Tokyo Story within it, and which Tokyo Story, for those of you who don't know, is considered one of the greatest, usually winds up in the top 5 of the greatest films of all time. In fact, once it usually sits around 3. But the essence of that story was a couple, an elderly couple, who decides to go and visit their children, and find out that their children aren't anxious to have them visit. And there is a scene in that film that recalls the scene in this one of the girlfriend or the significant other of the daughter in this film. But when we get there, I'll discuss that. But actually, Tokyo Story, as much as it's considered one of the great movies of all time, was derived, Yoshijiro Ozu, the director of that film, derived it from another film, believe it or not, an American film. The film is from 1938. It was an award-winning film. It was nominated for Academy Awards. It was entitled Make Way for Tomorrow. Make Way for Tomorrow. If you write that down, you find it. I think it's available on the internet. You should be able to watch once in a while. It shows up on Turner Classic Movies. It's a wonderful film. It stars two great actors from that period that you may or may not remember. Victor Moore and Beulah Bondi starred in the film, but it was about a couple who, because it is the Depression, they lose their house and they decide to go and visit their 5 children who are situated in various states. So they go to New York, where they find out they're not really wanted there either. And then I will not tell you what happens in the film in case you want to see it. And it is I remind you now, have a box of tissues with you when you see it. But anyway, those are the genesis. And, sometimes when we look for the essence of a film, we find it from other films. You look and you say, gee, that film looks familiar. Where did I see it before? And usually it starts off as a film from some other culture. And in this case, Cherry Blossoms does. But why I bring out those 2 films, Tokyo Story and Make Way for Tomorrow, is because Doris Story, when she talks about it in interviews, she mentioned that the film started in America, it went to Tokyo, I brought it to Germany, and now I'm bringing it back home to Tokyo. So she looks at it because she spent some years in Japan. She made a couple of films in Japan, and she feels that those are her 2 homes. So there is although it's not autobiographical, it's based on her encounters in Tokyo. Cherry Blossoms is a film about the cycle of life, especially the end of life, death, and a film about grief. Yet it is also a film about how easily we can fail to understand one another, and how love, if it is to prosper, must take that in its stride. Rather than being just another culture clash story. this is a story about how the meeting of different ways of life can enrich both, When two cultures come into contact, how they can both become enriched by it. We are slowly drawn into the life of Rudy and Trudy Angramere Meyer. And it opens up with Trudy being told by the doctors that her husband is being given a fatal diagnosis, but not knowing how long. And maybe they should go on a vacation. Maybe they should take an adventure. Through Trudy's character and voiceover, we learn about who her husband is. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. But notice how he doesn't eat the apple. He throws it to his compatriot all the time. Anyway, we learn about his character and who he is, what makes him tick. Cherry Blossoms forgoes any real plotting. It forgoes any real plotting to float gently on the beauty of the response, with the filmmaker allowing the actors to guide the feature with their sort of understated emotional instincts, working their way into the characters who are forced to express their desires, their apologies, after decades of ritual, of uniform schedules. I mean, Rudy probably can do everything blind. The way he walks to the train, gets on the train, looks at the paper, goes to work, comes home, and corked communications are erased by a single startling moment in the film when Trudy passes away. The principal relationship between Rudy and Trudy is where Dora's story obtains an outstanding look at behavioral nuance, played with elegance and poignant detail. These characters move from stagnant living to ill-fitting travel, and invites a host of foibles for us to focus on. Soon soured once the couple finds their children have little room left in their hearts for their old world parents who embrace order, traditional German food, and tightly choreographed domestic creature comforts. The first half of the film is devoted to the crush of parental lament and candid familial perspective, as Trudy senses mistakes made with her adult kids and confronts the lost dreams of her youth. It can be heart-wrenching at moments. We see the look on her face. I mean, she's so beautiful, this actress, in the way she expresses herself and withholds. She tries to withhold. I mean, with the grandchildren, tries to be very friendly and understanding. They're all, and Rudy with the food, when he visits them in Berlin, he brings along all the food to eat. And once Rudy travels to Tokyo, Blossoms becomes more about a catharsis heaped upon an unprepared man, eager to celebrate the memory of his adored wife. Abandoned by his son, who has no time to take him around Tokyo, Rudy is left to his own devices and searches blindly for gardens of cherry blossom trees, Budo dances, and ultimately the bashful summit of Mount Fuji to locate an opening to find Trudy's heavenly spirit. Dory doesn't glaze on the sentiment. She doesn't make it sentimental. Instead, she details Rudy's worrying confusion as he's stumbling around wearing his wife's clothes over his own. It's an act wearing those clothes. At first someone might laugh. What is he doing? It's an act more loving than it reads. It's much more loving than it reads. Or mistakenly seeks distraction in Tokyo's red light district. And how he is comforted for a moment when the school children reach out with hugs, something that the Japanese don't ordinarily do, which is why these kids are doing it. In a sense, that's a great metaphor, that moment for Japan reaching out for the world. The young people want to embrace the world. Japanese people don't embrace in public. And it is a beautiful moment in the film. The film itself is a beautiful depiction of loss, lacking this means for a proper extraction. And it allows the film the opportunity to find these vulnerable little spaces to explore within Rudy himself. You know, he was taciturn at the beginning. He doesn't let his emotions out. The only thing he gets angry at is the train, is buying the tickets for the train. If you remember, he has a hard time with that. But when he meets you, dancing Budo under the tree with the telephone, with their trouble trying to communicate in English. I mean, that's a whole wonderful sequence in and of itself. When they're trying to communicate in English, a language that's essentially foreign to both of them. Together, they discover a new language. It's beautiful in this film. They don't need words, signs, gestures, and the dance, which transcends all their cultural national differences. I love how you translate stuffed cabbage as she rolls them up in the blanket, like two stuffed cabbages. What a wonderful visual. And his reaction to finding you sleeping in a tent, realizing she's homeless, taking her home, much to his son Carl's irritation, and forcing him to want to leave the next day surreptitiously, and asking you to accompany him to Mount Fuji. And the film itself is graced with scenes when Rudy finds that the sky is clear and Mount Fuji perfectly visible. That moment after he wakes from his fever at the ryokan, and he opens the door and the sky is clear, he puts on Trudy's kimono, paints his face, then rushes out to the lakeshore to dance in Budo style. What a precious moment. Trudy's spirit joins him, and they both dance before he collapses and passes away. And how you, following that moment, deeply saddened, goes over his belongings, discovers an envelope in which he had left her all the money. A deserved reward. And the film ends with the luminous performance of you, surreally performing Budo in a park as she works through the loss of her own mother. Wise beyond this young girl's years, she tells the grieving Rudy that everyone has a shadow they dance with. The film incorporates a lot of threads and various symbolic elements along the way, but none of them ever seem forced. They all fit nicely into the flow of this movie. There is a massive transition where Rudy's character in the film starts out and where he ends up. His journey is absolutely wonderful in a filmic way, and it seems very natural. There isn't some kind of sudden flip. It's gradual and it's perfectly done. We can be touched by Rudy's striving to cope with his loss. Doris Story, who both wrote and directed, had a very intimate understanding of the people and places she was depicting, whether that be from personal experience or, as I said, just observation and thought. Her examination of marriage and family is very perceptive of how partners can become so entwined with one another as a couple that they lose their identities as individuals, missing out on the dreams and goals they had for their lives when they were still young and unattached. This is certainly the case for Trudy, who has harbored this lifelong desire to take up Japanese Budo dancing, a desire that Rudy, in his indifference, has pretty much squelched in her for the duration of their marriage. Such a realization of the lost opportunities can lead to regret, recrimination, and despair at the end of the road. Yet in the case of Rudy and Trudy, one learns that lesson a little too late, and the other just in the nick of time. The glory of this exquisitely realized and profoundly moving film is its willingness to grapple with some truly major issues of life and death, of sorrow and loss, of filial and marital relationships, without being heavy-handed. Every moment in this film feels real and unforced. I mean, just as the fly on the window on the train And later, them singing about the mayfly, the story that Trudy would always relate to the kids. That's the essence of the film. Everything exists for but a moment. Everything exists for but a moment. Capture the moment. And the movie itself has the minutely worked out grace and precision of a Japanese performance. It is, both Germanic and Japanese, but it captures the Japanese performance art, which we see quite a bit of through the course of the film. In fact, the fantasy dance sequence between Rudy and Trudy is absolutely spellbinding. It is so Japanese in its way, yet so human, just so human. Doris Story says about the film, one has to give love a chance to reveal itself. And that's what gives this film it's so much revelation. Reveal itself in its greatest pain and its strength. That's why the Japanese sit under the cherry blossoms, because they are tremendously beautiful when they are blooming. At the same time, there is pain over the fact that this period of blossoming is short-lived. And that's a tremendous pain that they bear, because they sit under those trees every year as a means of remembrance, One has to catch the moment when they are actually blossoming. That's why they have people, they actually monitor the trees in Japan. You can go to a television channel and they report on when the trees are blossoming, because if you miss that particular moment, that's it for an entire year, or possibly forever in some cases. In love, one has to keep at it. One has to give it the chance to blossom. And when it does, one has to actually be there to appreciate. That's what it's all about. That each person, each plant, each animal is granted a moment when it can truly blossom and reveal itself. But what often happens to us and to Rudy is that we just keep suppressing it. We never allow our true self and our true beauty to reveal itself, to blossom like the cherry tree. That's what Doris Story said. Exquisitely made, this gentle, intelligent film is full of warm humor, and it's a piece of work in which every detail counts. Every shot is beautifully framed and lit. A fly, as I said, clinging to a window pane, a handkerchief tied to a railing, a pair of slippers on a mat, the banalities of daily life, of geese on the street of a small town, wash hanging on a line, or young people offering hugs to people to reach out to the world. All these little things are full of meaning. Cherry Blossoms invites us to slow down and discover those hidden layers of meaning in our own lives. We can relate to it. The film, it's resonant, it's relevant, it's revealing. It requires and solicits a certain generosity of spirit and openness to experience. But what it offers in return is something remarkable. Concerning the Budo dancing, Dari got in touch with Tadashi Endo, the dancer you saw in the film. His name was Tadashi Endo. He is a famous Budo dancer who lives in Germany, and she took workshops with him as he explained Budo to her as a dance of the dead. Budo is a dance of the dead. It arose after World War II. It is a very modern dance. Was not popular for a while in Japan and has taken hold. But he said, Tadashi explains, it's as if the dead were dreaming about us. It's the dead dreaming about the living. So the film is like little postcards from Rudy's dead wife. That's the key to the story. If you remember, she has that book, the 100 Views of Mount Fuji. And it's like those postcards, and she's sending him messages. Elma Wepper, who plays Rudy, and Hannah Lauria Elsner, who plays Trudy, are magnificent as this couple, superbly capturing the deep-seated but often unspoken love that each spouse has for the other. It's a fine supporting cast. I especially loved, as I said, their daughter's significant other, when she is the only one that's kind to them in Berlin. She takes them around Berlin. If you remember, she's the one that drives them around and really connects with them. she connects with them better than the children do. Isn't that always the case? It's always the friends that come to the house that admire the parents because they don't have to live there. It's so true. It's so true. And I especially love Aya Irakuzi. Aya Irakuzi, who is the young street artist Yu, who befriends Rudy in his time of greatest need. And she adds tremendously to the richness of this movie. She's absolutely wonderful. Another crucial element is the emotional force of the music in the movie. I thought the music was wonderful. It was a rich score, and it was elegiac, and it was really well done. I thought it captured some of the humor of the film, the sadness. It was very well composed. So there you have my take on the film. I know I didn't discuss some specific scenes, leaving it for you so I can judge by your observations. So I will now open it up. And, you have, I see some of you raising your hands. You also have your little hands that you can raise in reactions. If you go to reactions, there's a little hand, and if you click on it, it'll pop right up. So if you have a comment, you could do that, and I'll see you on the screen. But I see Arlette's big hand.
First of all, it was an endearing and poetic journey, but I especially enjoyed the funeral. At the end, when the second part of the funeral, where the skeleton is laid out and they're each picking the bone, and how one bone just fell to the floor and they just swept it up into the dustpan, which I thought was very unique. I enjoy watching cultural funerals, and this was a first for me. I was in total awe of it and how they progressed with that funeral.
Well, I will tell you, there is a magnificent film, another Japanese film, which won the Academy Award back, I think it was in 2006, somewhere around there. It's called Departures. And it features several Japanese funerals, and you see the ritual, and that is the ritual. I mean, it was absolutely just the way it's portrayed on film. That's what they take home with them, and they want them. They literally do that. The children, the spouses literally do that, so they feel a connection. They keep that connection. It's very important. Very lovely moment in the film. It is, and there, that symbolism. Also, the contrast of the funerals in Germany when they put the urns in the ground, rather than keep them. Is interesting. So we see contrast of ritual, of culture in the film. Thank you, Arlette. Dora.
Okay. About the music, I thought that there was like her theme. Every time that he
Yes.
recalled her, it was the same theme in the music. I noticed that. And something else about the friend of one of the daughters, she was the only person when the funeral. Kids didn't. It was so hurtful to see how the kids. It was like a burden that the parents were there. They didn't want to. Why did they come here? They should just leave. They even the grandkids. They had no feeling for their grandparents, and even the son that was in Tokyo. When he was talking on the phone saying about his father, and he was listening, it must have been so hurtful. And then he said, you just have to let me be a couple of more days. Like he says it, that it was just his end also, that soon he was going to be gone. I don't know if it's that's the meaning, but that I felt, and the way he wore her dress, it was like he was doing whatever she wanted to have done, to go to Tokyo and to dance and all that. And now that she was not able to do it, then he wanted to portray her as, you know, as like an homage to her. I don't know if it's the right. And then at the end, when he danced, he felt like he danced with her, and he finally died. So it was like her calling. I don't know. It was a beautiful scene, and when Mount Fuji in the back, it was such a beautiful scene at the end. You know, it was very touching. But
Yes,
it was hurtful for me. You know what the kids did. I felt horrible.
yeah, well, I mean, and that's, you know, this is a very
It's-
subjective film. It resonates differently with everybody. And that's great that you could express that. Yes, in essence, he was looking for her. He was showing her when he opens his coat, you know, here are the cherry blossoms. Here's where you always wanted to be. He realizes it, you know, for him, he's able to make that transition to realize what he's denied her or what she's denied herself. He never realized it, you know, never looked beyond himself. He had his ritual. I mean, you could see he probably built the trench with his footsteps every day walking to the train. It's that kind of thing. And now he's opening up and realizing what he's missed. I thought was very beautiful. But and yes, the significant other, the daughter, her girlfriend is you know, in Tokyo Story, if you've seen the film or if you will see the film, there is a daughter-in-law that they go to visit, their son dies in World War II, and they go to visit the daughter-in-law, and she is the only one that pays them any kind of attention and extends a hand to them when they visit Tokyo. It's the same, it's a reflection of the same kind of character here in the film,
Yeah.
in Cherry Blossoms.
Yeah, it reminds me this saying that said that one mother can take care of 10 children, and 10 children cannot take care of one mother.
That's true.
So sad.
Very true. Thank you, Dora. Jackie.
I thought it was interesting that he was actually the one who was diagnosed with the illness, but it was her that died first. So in essence, it made me feel almost like she was giving of herself, like sacrificing herself so that he could find what the meaning really was. And he had a chance to do that before he died. But to be honest with you, although it kind of stung what the kids were doing and what he did, I think that in most ways, not every way, that's what most of us do. I mean, we get involved in our own lives. Fathers are supporting the families. Mothers are raising the kids. The kids grow up and they have their lives. I think if we were all really honest in our own ways, we probably did something very similar. And I don't think it's that unusual that someone from outside would see something different, because the kids grew up with the parents have spent all this time together. They've spent so much time, they have become almost like putting a shield around each other so that they could get along, whereas somebody new sees something totally different. So I don't find that that's that different from everybody's lives.
It's not. It's absolutely not. And that's the point of the film, is Dory's holding up a mirror. Doris Story's holding up a mirror and saying, see how we behave? See how we behave? We're all the same. I mean, you can go to any culture, you know, we're all the same. There are today, you know, Japan and China are going through a traditional shift because the young people, you know, traditionally the parents would move in with the children. That's not happening anymore. A lot of the parents are caught adrift. You know, first of all, you know, there's been the great migrations in China, where they've moved from an agrarian society to an industrial society. And so a lot of the young people left the farmlands, moved into the city. I'm going back, you know, 30, 40 years. But now those children have become parents, and their children have gone off. So it's you're getting these cultural shifts. And in a sense, that's what the film is saying. You know, it's holding up that mirror and saying, this is who we are. as a human society. This is how we are. It's very human. So learn from it. Learn from it. I mean, the point is how do you learn from this? Is to look for us to look in the mirror and say, Jesus, I did the same thing. You know, there are times when you are wrapped up in your own life. And that's the point. I mean, even Rudy, even as a couple, Rudy was wrapped up in his own life. He wasn't seeing what Trudy really wanted. And she couldn't express it to him, even though she tried. But it's, you know, I mean, even when they go to the dance, he's outside, he doesn't want to deal with it. You know, she's the one, you know, and she takes you know, the friend along with her, and the friend sees it and finds the beauty in it. You know, I think that's really, you know, what we have to look at in film sometimes is like, no, it's not strange. It really isn't. But it's because it's who we are. It's who we are. And it's a very human film in that aspect. Very human film. So yes, you're absolutely right. Thank you. Carol Sassoon.
Hi, good evening. Yes.
Hi.
My husband and I enjoyed the film. I agree with Jackie that it's not so uncommon for people to do what they're doing and behaving. But I like the way that I understood, I guess, that he gave her the money. Is that correct? He left
Yes,
her the money,
yes.
which I thought was a very nice gesture, you know, to help her to, you know, find a better shelter possibly, or to help her a little bit, help her along. But I thought it was also, I agree with what you said, that it's also about living life in the moment and not waiting to do things, whether you want to learn dance or you want to go someplace, you want to do something. And that's hard to do. You think of it like, yes, I want to do that, but it's hard sometimes
Yes.
to do that when you have other responsibilities. But I liked it. It was sad, but I didn't like the funeral scene at all. Thought that was kind of creepy. I did not like that. I couldn't even look at that. And it's
Yeah,
just
well,
for me,
yeah,
but
that's a cultural dissonance.
but I did like, I thought Rudy was very well, not Rudy, the girl, you
You.
played very, very well. And he did too, but I like her.
Okay, great, great. You know, it's you know, about the money. I also have to tell you, you know, in Japan, these funerals are quite expensive. Funerals like that are very expensive. And she probably used a good deal of the money to pay for his funeral. You know, she chose the way she lives. She's choosing the way she lives. A lot of young people choose this. And it's you know, it's different, but there are a lot of there are a lot of these little tent places in Japan. But she probably did use a lot of the money for the funeral. She paid for the funeral. So, you know, we know, you know, that's also, you know, we have to understand that. But I'm sure she had some for herself as well. But I don't know how much she's going to change based on that. But thank you. Marilyn.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought Rudy was very selfish and very cold. I thought that he regretted what he had done. He was guilt-ridden. And a lot of the things that he did later on, performing what she had wanted to share with him, but she never did because he wouldn't. And she, at the very beginning, was showing how this is where she really wanted to go to Japan. And the beginning scene, if I remember right, was the woodblock prints by Hokusai, the Japanese artist, yes, and all of the views of Mount Fuji. This is what she wanted more than anything. And I have a feeling he may not have been a great father, and that may have been part of the reason that the children were so cold at the end. So I didn't see him as a great man. I thought just guilt-ridden, and he compensated, perhaps overcompensated at the end in performing everything that she would have loved to have experienced.
It's an interesting comment, and I'll tell you why. If you see, you know, when you look at films, as many as I do, but if you look at films, the film Still Walking, Japanese film, in that one, the patriarch, standoffish, doesn't want to deal with anybody. The same thing is, it's it is partially a cultural thing and an upbringing thing. But even the Germanic culture is this stern, father image. They're not plush animals. They're not huggy, which was interesting for him when he was in Japan and they want to hug and he's like, he's trying to find his way. Yes, he was self-centered, totally self-centered. I loved it when they were on the beach and Trudy puts them in the sweater. That's contrasted later on with the stuffed cabbage. Think about those two scenes. They're very contrasting scenes. There she's putting him in the sweater with her, and they're walking together. She was the one that was really loving, that wanted to express all this love. And he wasn't really always on the receiving end. I mean, he didn't know how to receive it, basically. And now he's forced to try and come to grips with all of this. For some, it's too late. For him, it wasn't too late. He still had a chance to try and figure things out a little bit, even though he can regret it, regret not doing it while she was alive. He's trying to make that connection. And it's so real. It's so real. It is live life in the moment, because you're going to regret it if you don't. And that's what's happened to him here, is he hasn't seen that other side of life with her. And that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. Thank you, Marilyn. Susan Metch.
Well, I agree with most everything everybody's saying. In the beginning, when you saw the visit, they decided to do this visit, and it seemed like a long time between any kind of contact between the children and the parents. There was a lot of resentment, the children talking about it, that Carl was the favorite and this one was this and that kind of thing. And the children said, why did they come? It was like, why did they come to visit us? And that was an interesting thing. And he was like clueless to me. He was really clueless about his relationship with the children. He thought that because he was the father, therefore they should respect and love him without, any qualifications. And that was a very interesting concept, that should be the way it should be. So I thought that, but I have to tell you, I cried at the end. And I really cried, and I didn't think I was going to do that. But I loved you also. And I thought she brought a certain softness and a way of looking at life to him that opened up his eyes. It absolutely opened up his eyes to things. And he knew, I think he instinctively knew that he wanted to be close to the woman he wasn't close to, and he wanted to fulfill her dreams by wearing her clothes, which wasn't, silly. He wanted to be close to her. He wanted her spirit with him. So I thought that was a beautiful thing. And I'm very glad you chose this movie.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you. Ann Kirshner.
I'm sorry, maybe it's going to say something.
You got, can you unmute?
Okay.
There you go.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought that originally that he was the one that was sick.
Yes.
I think he went to the doctor and he was sick. So she was taking care of him because he was the one that was going to leave her. Now, when somebody likes to travel or do things and someone doesn't, it's one person isn't wrong or the other person isn't wrong. They have differences of opinion. So he has to compromise or she has to compromise or nobody gets what they want. So that's another point. Now, I think that in certain people in certain generations, the father is the father, expects respect. He doesn't really have to deal anything with the children. That's a cultural thing as well. So when I looked at that relationship, I thought she was being overly kind and sweet to him because he was going to leave her. So she was being very, very kind and sweet. This is my last gift to you. Now, it was strange when she dies. I thought, oh, my God, I thought he was the sick one. Now she dies. That's not fair. I expected you to bury me, and now I'm burying you. So you get that whole change of things. Now, when he gets to the point where he's lost her, he gets an epiphany. Oh my God, what did I lose? I lost a life and I lost her. So he came around and he's the character that goes doubly blessed because he got the light. So I kind of saw that as a different kind of, I didn't see him as being selfish. He was limited. We all are limited. We can only do what we can do. So I felt differently about that.
Well, you gave us a nice synopsis. Terrific, and I like the way you explained it. But whether you call him, not selfish, he's self-centered. He just didn't realize he was limited. He was limited. I mean, he was limited. He had blinders on. He went to work. He said the same thing every day. Read the paper the same way every day. He was a creature of habit. He was a creature of ritual. Which is, again, a very probably cultural thing, and therefore was not seeing. He was not seeing as a result of it. And yes, he didn't know. He knew he was taking all these pills. He didn't know what the diagnosis was. Yes, it is a shock, and it's a purposeful shock in the film, and it works to jar us, number one, and say, oh my God, what happened? It was supposed to be the other way around. And now what's going to happen? And it's an interesting flip to see what he does, to see how he behaves, because it is his experience. It's his odyssey that we're really witness to. And that's the trick here. That's the trick. We know who Trudy is. We don't know who Rudy is. Rudy's closed in. Just as you say, he's very limited. He's closed. That's the way he looks. But now he opens up. He blossoms in the second half of the film. He's the cherry blossom in the second half of the film. When you think about it, that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of the film. So thank you, Ann. Thank you. Very nice. Okay, I see other hands. Barbara, I saw your hand up, and then Aktara, I see your hand. You'll be next. Okay, go ahead, Barbara.
I love the fact that she died instead of he when it happened, because you're watching the movie and you're going on and thinking, so what, then wham, it's like the whale jumping up the side of the boat and I thought then that the director has done this to us, and she's taking us on a path, and all through the movie I felt the presence of like a different director. And I don't remember feeling that before. And I did love the ritual of the burial. I found it a little gruesome. I've been through a cremation recently, and I thought, oh God, that's what it looks like. But I thought there was a beauty in it. And it's, of course, something we've never been exposed to, although I have been to a performance by mistake of Buto dancing. Unbearable.
Interesting. It is tough.
It's unbearable.
Yes, it is tough.
But I felt the director somehow, and I don't remember feeling that. And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad she did that. It's just not going to be a movie that goes bump, 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 bump.
Right. Well, that's it. And that's the magic of the film. Exactly. She's setting us up, and then she's pulling the rug out from under us.
I love that.
Yeah. Terrific. Thank you, Barbara. Aktara.
Yeah, I think that there is an element of secrecy that happens in many families, and that brings a lot of problems. And that was what happened with the children. Why are they here? And he didn't know that he was sick, and he didn't know if he would have known that he was sick. Well, there wouldn't have been any film.
Right. That's great. No, you're absolutely right. We always look, every film, we want to establish conflict. We want to establish means of conflict. And that's a conflict within the film, is the fact that she's not telling them, the children, so they don't know. And would they have behaved differently had they known? And that's a big question. That's a big question mark that we could leave hanging in the air. But you're absolutely right. Is there are those things in the film? I love it. You all your comments are so really working towards the understanding of the film for each of us, because it is, to me, it is a very subjective film. It's also a very universal film. It is a culturally, while it's culturally intimate in terms of German and Japanese, it is also universal. It's also something every parent, every child can feel. So thank you, Clara, thank you. Nora.
I love the movie, and I love the relationship between the parents and the kids, especially since when I go to visit my adult kids, I just and I'm good for 2 or 3 days, and then I'm kind of, they're busy, they have their life, I'm in the way. But I think what was really interesting is that there was no conflict. You saw the parents' point of view and you saw the children's point of view, but they never fought about it. They didn't have an out to out like some families have. And I really like that you just saw their point of view, and you understood it, but there was no fighting between them.
No, it's really, but it's in a conflict. It's the conflict within the characters themselves, because we see the daughter when they're leaving, she starts to cry. Am I a bad person? She needs the comfort of her mate to tell her, no, you're not a bad person. But it's am I a bad person because of the way I'm behaving? No, you're human. You're human. It's a human thing. It's also, we can understand that maybe some of the things we talked about how possibly Rudy was. All of these things are probably true, are accurate.
Well, they said that Rudy worked and the mother raised them.
Right.
It was very kind of typical of that type of family that we used to all have. The mother stayed home, she raised the kids, the father wasn't around much. And it was like looking in a mirror when I watched this. It was just, I loved it. I just loved it.
Terrific. Yeah, I mean, and you get, all the banality of life in this film. I mean, when you look at, you wonder why certain shots occur. The geese on the street, you see them a couple of times. The mother goose is taking care of the little geese. Where's the father goose? He's off working. It's you think about these things. You have to look at, what are these symbols? What are these metaphors? What's going on here? We don't, she doesn't waste really a frame in the film. It's interesting how their son in Japan, he tries to assimilate. He goes to the, when he's sitting under the cherry blossoms, the other people, he's trying to be like them. He's getting drunk. He's, he's a workaholic. He's adapted the Japanese way in order to survive in Japan. But it's very interesting when you look and what you can extract from what a director is doing, if they're doing it well. Thank you, Nora. Arlette?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention what was interesting towards the end of the movie. The son that lived in Japan couldn't wait to get as far away from his mother. It was mentioned in the movie, to Japan. And then it made me think, is that why his mother was drawn to Japanese things because of her son and wanted to go there? Or was she infatuated with Japan and its dancing, etc.?
It's an interesting question, and it's one which I can't resolve, but I will tell you, if you remember, she defends him. They talked about his drinking, and she said he's not drinking anymore, but he was. He was her Carly. He was the little prince. And I think that rejection by him of leaving, of getting away from the nest, might have had that effect on her. We will never know, but it's an interesting supposition. Interesting supposition. Thank you. Mel.
This is a wonderful picture of comparison of two cultures. One, you have the Germanic and the other is Japanese, and they seem to get together. The Germanic, is a very sturdy, strict type of society. The Japanese are just the opposite, and the woman is always quiescent to the man. If in the Japanese film, you always see the woman walking behind the man and not with the man.
Yes, yes.
So now the question is, why did the children dislike the mother or try to get away from them? Maybe because she was so loving and he was more strict, and they grew up in a Germanic situation.
It's possible. It's, you know, both cultures though are they don't show outward affection. You know, and also, you know, you talk about how alike they are. Well, they got together during the war. I mean, you know, there's got to be a reason for it. But the idea is that they both, you know, lack outward signs of affection. And it now, you know, that's where we see, but how each culture deals with it. And there's a bridge there between him walking in the streets and making the connection through the Japanese, through another culture, how he's able to finally come to grips with the loss, with trying to connect through another culture. We wind up seeing the similarities in our cultures. We wind up seeing, you know, there is the human connection. The human connection supersedes culture in many ways. And I think that's important to understand. So we get that in there. And
I have a question. I kind of had a feeling that there was a little bit of a Japanese in the wife. She looked a little bit Asian to me. And I kind of thought maybe there was a little bit of history in there. And that's the connection that she had with the Japanese. And it's not so unusual for the mother's home. The kids are going to be annoyed with the mother. You know, the father's not around, so you admire the father. You want the blessing of the father. You want the approval of the father. The mother's going to give you unconditional love. You don't have to give it back.
Yeah. You know, I don't think there was anything Japanese. I think that's just a desire and what she was feeling. I don't see a link there. But yes, I understand, you know, the feeling of children. Could be, yes. Thank you.
I think that it was like the Oedipus tragedy when he left so far from his mother, and he kept his mother within him.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Clara. Dorothy, you got to unmute, Dorothy.
Okay, I'm glad Ann said that, because when I started the movie, I thought that the mother was part Japanese. No, really. And then it took me a while to come around that she wasn't. I was waiting to see what the children looked like. At first I thought that she wanted to go back to her home country, and then everything turned around. So I'm with you, Ann, 100%. She has a certain look about her that I thought that she was part Japanese. But aside from that, I thought the movie was just so poignant in places that it did bring tears to my eyes, especially when they were dancing together. That just broke my heart.
Yeah.
So it was a wonderful movie. Wonderful.
Thank you, Dorothy. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Have anything they'd like to? Alice has something in the chat. Let's see what that's about. Every frame was like a piece of art. The son wanted to go far away so he wouldn't be dependent on her. Well, when the father cooked the familiar dinner for his son, I thought that the sight of his mother's cooking brought back the memory of his love. Well, that's an interesting comment. Food has that power, no question about it. It certainly was doing it for Rudy. Carl had to leave because he felt somebody else, that he felt that he was too, oh, that was somebody else. Okay. Yes. Okay. Anybody else have anything they'd like to say? No? Okay, well, this was great. Those of you who contributed, Arletta, you okay? You sort of sideways. Anyway, this was terrific as usual. This film
Shelley,
got through to you in so many ways.
Beautiful.
we want to thank you. We want to thank you for always. This was a wonderful film, and your analysis is always right on target. I just want to let everybody know that Shelley will be back on both March 8th and March 22nd.
Yeah.
Both films will be from Italy. So Shelley,
Yes.
you want to give them a little
I'm gonna-
preview of that?
Yeah, on March 8th, a terrific film. It's called Terra Firma. Terra Firma. You can watch it again on Canopy. It's available on other sites as well. It's from 2011. It is an intimate story in many ways. Again, culturally intimate, universal in so many ways. It's reflecting one of the major crises of our time, namely the migration crisis, the immigration crisis here in Europe, of the move up from Africa through Italy, on Linosa, which is a minor island south of Sicily, far from the Italian mainland, which the locals call terra firma, meaning solid earth, solid land. A local fishing boat runs into a raft teeming with exhausted, dying Africans. Ernesto, the wizened captain, will do something that will change the fate of his family. And also, it will create a compelling and emotional struggle amidst the changing tides of humanity. I think it's an incredible film. It's a great story. Again, terrific acting, great cinematography, but a wonderful evocation of humanity itself. So it's involving, it's thematically rich. So I hope you'll join me on March 8th for Terra Firma, and I will see you then. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank
Thank
you,
Bye.
Shelley.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Good night.
Good night.
I have a technical question. How does one get a
Yes.
hand to be
How does
recognized?
one?
No, the yellow
Down
hand.
on the bottom, Mel.
Where it
Down on the
says
Very
bottom.
bottom.
Down on the very bottom
more.
where it says reactions.
Where it says more. Where it
Oh,
says
I don't know. Mine has reactions.
more,
I
and
think
then
it says
raise
more.
hand more. Where it
Click
says
on that and it'll come up.
No, I don't see it.
The
I guess
little face.
we have no hand.
Do you see a little face?
No face. Oh, reactions.
Yeah,
Yes.
reactions. Click on that.
Oh, we got it. We got
I
it.
got it. Good. Good.
Yay.
Yay, there we
A
go.
little tech lesson. Thank you
There
again.
you go.
Yeah.
Good night.
Okay.
Pleasure. A pleasure.
Raise a hand.
All right. Take it
All right.
easy, Mel.
Everybody have a
Marilyn.
good few
Thank
weeks.
you.
Bye.
Yes.